Hey everyone, we got the Dragon Quest Dai units. It's part 1, there's 2 parts. Next week we are most likely getting the second batch with Baran, Hyundakal I believe, and a third one that is totally irrelevant, alongside Vision World, which I'm very excited about. But today our focus is on Hero Dai, martial artist Maam, and Mage Popp. Now, the way this review is going to work is that I will mainly focus on Dai because he is the actually good one of the 3. And also, I really don't have the time to make 3 individual reviews. I'm just trying to cut corners wherever possible, just to have more time for my thesis. Please bear with me until the end of August. 26th of August is the day where it's definitely done. So starting September, you can expect to have or to see individual reviews again and more guides and all. Also, if you're wondering what it says in Japanese, that's Daisuki. It's a pun because even though Dai in the Japanese version of the game has his name written in katakana, which is just basically how you would pronounce it in English, but that Daisuki so the Dai in Daisuki is pretty much pronounced the same way, and it means big. Usually Dai means big, large, and ski is like, so big like, or as it actually is translated is love. So that's a nice pun, I guess. But yeah, you guys are not here for a Japanese lesson, and I believe half of the people already left. So let's start with the review. We have Hero Dai and a Dragoon Knight Dai in a Brave Shift. He is now B finisher in both forms. Don't get confused here. He's just a strong LB finisher in his Brave Shift. Sadly, the wiki is not updated for the English names, but I do kind of like the Japanese stuff in a name. The one on the left, for example, reads Kitore ni wa subete ga kireru. So I like it. It's just, it fits pretty nice to the whole gimmicks of his. But yeah, it's a 45% lightning amp to sell, 300 LB, which I find nice because usually you'd have this on a Grandis, one-time Grandis. This one, not too shabby. It's also 30x LB modifier increase, which is his personal Tyvis buff. So that's cool, I guess. And there's also in his Brave Shift that 99% damage mitigation. Rather cool, but probably never really useful because it's just for himself, but it's nice to have, I guess. And then let's check out the overview. So what I do like is that he has an on-demand perfect dispel on his base form, I guess. Maybe it's in the Brave Shift too, I forgot already, but having a perfect dispel on demand is rather nice. What's really striking though, and that is the really cool thing about Dai, is that he has capped out LB damage, as you can see from his true double hand passive, as well as from equipping his TMR. So if you add those up, that's exactly 300%, super awesome. He also fully caps on attack percent innately. That's crazy. It's super cool. So gearing him is very easy. Now, what I don't particularly like is that they spread out his static attack so much. Having 250 tied to EX plus 2 and 500 to EX plus 3 is kind of, why? Just why? Just make it 750 on EX plus 2 and give him something cool at EX plus 3. That would have been so much better, because what he truly lacks is any kind of party support. So having him unlock some kind of killer buff for EX plus 3 would have been nicer. Even though people would be mad for good reasons, but it would have been better than just this uncreative static attack and magic stuff. On the other hand, though, he does have a lot of killers, a lot of innate killers. It's 6 races to be specific: fairies, beasts, reapers, stones, dragons, demons. None of them are really rare, but it's 200% killers, meaning if you fight any of these 6 races, Dai is not gonna be super bad. He's gonna be actually pretty good and easy to gear even. So that's cool, I like it. He also gains a modifier boost for his LB when fighting demons, so let's check this out. The base form LB is split into 2. So one hit is 140x if he's fighting a demon. The other hit is a 150 physical damage. Nice about this, it's physical damage, so you can imbue this. So when you're fighting a demon typed boss, it's a 290x modifier. Not too shabby, but also not the best. But what happens if you fight a non-demon, you might ask? In that case, the 140x just goes down to 1x. It still gets the benefit from Tyvus's spirit or his own cooldown, meaning at worst this is a 31x plus the 150x or 180x with his own cooldown, meaning it's still 211 at the end of the day. It's something, right? And the Brave Shift Limit Burst is where the real deal starts, because when fighting a demon boss, this is a 390x with his own cooldown / Tyvus's spirit. This is a 450x, thus matching Knights of Grandchild, which is super cool. It's really good. However, he is locked to lightning. But then again, Knights of Grandchild being locked to light didn't do any harm to them last Dark Visions, so I would assume Hero Dai falls into that same category where he's rather nice to use with his double hit. However, keep in mind, the one hit is 50x for demons only, meaning at worst you still have a 401x modifier unit. But keeping in mind that, keeping in the whole package in mind, he will perform a little bit worse than units such as Esther, even though he has the higher LB modifier, but Esther has 60% lightning amp, for example, so that kind of evens out the deal. They are rather comparable in their damage, which we'll see in a bit. The other things on his Brave Shifter Limit Burst, 85% defense and spirit, breaks, which, whatever, we have better units. Kaido comes to mind, for example, or Esther comes to mind with 88 respectively, 87% breaks to both. So yeah, 130% lightning imperil as well as 300% LB boost, which happens before the damage. Very important and very good. That means he has a slight upside over Knights of Grandchild, who has only 250% LB boost and needs external 300% buff. So Hero Dai, rather self-sufficient, even though not everything is great about him. Like, for example, the 130% Lightning Emperor, because there are certainly better ones out there. So let's check out the TMR STMR revision card. Now this is where, where Popp and Maam come into play as well. So I skipped Maam and Popp's overview, but we will start with both of them right after this as well. So Dai has all 3 of them have an accessory as a TMR. Excuse me. Dai has 56 attack and magic, 30% lightning and dark resistance, 75% true single wield attack. True single wield, if you're not familiar with the wording, means that this applies no matter whether you're wearing a shield or not. If you're wearing a shield, you're still getting 75% true single wield equipment attack, which is good. It's good stuff. However, keep in mind, if you wear a shield, your weapon imperils are halved. So that's something to keep in mind. And Dai himself gains 250 static attack and magic on top. The Super Trust Master is a two-handed sword with the usual sword variants, and it's the highest, at least to my knowledge, two-handed sword attack, because it has 232 attack on the sword, which is better than, for example, Freyevia for attack users. But for magic users, Freyavir's sword is kind of better compared to this. We'll get to that in a moment though, or next week I believe we'll get a better sword for mages from Baran. Not quite sure, we'll see next week. But there is something coming for mages as well that use swords, for example. But 201 magic on Dai's STMR is still pretty decent, but it's getting rather obvious that this is meant for sword attacker users. And if that wasn't enough, the sword also has 75% triple killers with Dragon, Stone and Demon. Again, Dragon and Demon rather common. Stone is pretty cool on this, but the whole package in general, I like it a lot. It's a super, super good sword. And while the sword meta may be over, probably, not quite sure, but it will eventually come back when Titus rolls around with his, I believe, 40% sword in peril. So if you're asking me how many STMRs of Dai you should get, I would say 2 or 3. I personally have 4 now. So I think that's a good number. So 2 is a good number, meaning 2 is a good number. If you can get more than that, obviously the more the better. Because if the sword meta prevails or comes back when Titus comes, you want to use this sword in particular. Especially against the 3 races listed on the sheet. Now the vision card. You should be aware by now, hopefully, that Gumi somewhat messed up the vision card, and in some languages, I know for sure the Korean language package, mistakenly had the vision card unrestricted or didn't list any restrictions. And there's 2 ways for Gumi to handle this. Refund everybody who pulled for this, or buff the vision card for everybody. Now, because refunding, for example, take me, I went off stream to a for pity, that would be no bueno for Gumi, because they would have to refund me over 100,000 lapis. They went the other way, obviously, and buffed the card for everybody. So, what we are looking at here is a 1500 base HP card with 120 base attack and magic. Pretty good stuff already. 50% unconditional attack and magic. A rather low tier-ish 25% LB damage. But, and this is the kicker, 500 static attack for everybody. No restrictions. And that is crazy good. It's basically a discounted Knights of Grandchild card, because let's be honest, the Knights of Grandchild card is in every aspect is better than this. If you are an attacker unit, that is the only downside to Knights of Grandchild card, but it has more attack. It has more attack percentage. It has 100 LB damage, but the same static attack. So if you skipped out, for example, Knights of Grandchild card, this one you do want to get, because it's good. It's like the second best vision card for physical DPS. One could argue it's also super good for magic DPS, and I wouldn't disagree, but then you're missing out on static magic. So it's good. It's really good for physical attackers, and if you missed or couldn't afford a Knights of Grandchild card, here's a second chance. It's 36k at worst. Go get it, I guess, because this is really nice. Another substitute would be Kaito's vision card, but that is locked to FFBE units. This one isn't, so it's very strong. So yeah, all in all, the TMR is decent, the STMR is really good, great even, and the vision card is absolutely good. It's super nice, and if you couldn't afford or get a Knights of Grandchild card, you should get this one instead. Now let's take a look at Martial Artist Maam. The vision card, not the vision card. And the accessory TMR is 60 attack, 30% water light resistance, another 75 true singer with attack, equipment attack accessory, but this one is tied to hammers, guns and fists, sadly. And it also does 250 static attack and magic for Maam only. The Super Trust Master is our first really strong two-handed fist. Now what you need to know about fist is that they technically aren't as good as swords or great swords, and that is due to the upper ceiling of the variants. While, for example, swords and great swords have the upper ceiling at 1.6 1.75x variants. Fists have a lower ceiling or higher ceiling floor at 1.45, but they cap out at 1.65x variants instead of the 1.75x variants that swords or great swords, for example, have. So which one is better on average? Technically speaking, the fist, because it has a narrower window, but in a high variance scenario, top ranking scores, the swords and great swords will most likely always win. Nonetheless, Carton in Dark Visions, not Dark Visions, sorry, in Clash of Worlds, when you use him to ODK bosses, he will love this weapon. Truthfully, because the Igoyon arm, the two-handed one, is so old, it has so little attack, I believe it's 50 less than this. Carton's gonna love it. And next to the 219 attack and 201 spirit, this also provides 100% demon killer physical and magical, which is super cool. Lots of resistances, 20% to fire, ice, water, wind, earth, light and dark. And Maam also gets 250 static attack on top. The vision card, it's a trash tier card, let's get this right out of the way. It's a 1500 base HP, 100 base magic and attack, 50% unconditional all stats, meaning attack, defense, magic and spirit. Also 25 LP damage and 300 static all stats for Dragon Quest Dai units only. So yeah, the TMR is rather weak compared to Dai because of the hammer gun fist restriction. The STMR is amazing and the first actually good two-handed fist. And yeah, the vision card, like I mentioned, it's trash. It's strictly worse than Dai's vision card, and you don't want this basically. So Mage Popp has the same vision card. He shares it with Maam, so we don't need to talk about that. Let's start though with the Trustmaster. It's a 60 magic one. It's basically a carbon copy in terms of stats from Maam. So it's 30% fire earth resistance, 75% true single wield magic, no restriction though. 8% MP recovery. I kind of find it funny that MP recovery is his whole gimmick around his kit, but oh well. And 250 static attack and magic. I made a mistake. It's not Maam only, it's Popp only. I just copied this and forgot to change it. So excuse me for that, but I fixed it on the STMR side for some reason. So the STMR, it's the best, technically best rod you can ask for. It's a two-handed rod with the updated rod variants. I'm not quite sure whether the 1.65 is correct. No, it's not correct. It's 1.75. I should have changed this. So it's 1.75x maxed out variants. Keep that in mind. But the rest of it is correct. 218 magic, 75% demon and fairy killer on top of things, and 250 let me make sure this is correct. Yep, 250 static magic for Popp only. So the TMR is rather strong for mages, but it will get outclassed by Lulu's TMR, well, for 4 or 5 months from now basically. So it will have some usage case, but rest assured that Lulu's TMR will be better. The STMR though is amazing for mages once they get to enjoy the Mage Variants update, which is due in 2 or 3 weeks. So we are all looking forward to that. And the STMR actually, if you do have Angela usually wants to use this. She also would like to use, I believe, Return Nick Hall or Sakura's STMR. Those are good, but they have elements attached to them. This one doesn't, so you are still free to imbue Angela with whatever element you need. And with the 1.75x variants, this is top notch. So I personally have 2. I would like 3 or 4 of this STMR, but I just, for whatever reason, can't pull a Popp, and I called it a day after the third pity. So 2 STMR it is for me. Maybe 2 STMR is already more than enough, and yeah, it's fine. Again, vision card still trash, same as Maam. So let's check out the damage calculation. You can pause the video for a second and check out the parameters. Let's look at the builds. So Dragoon Knight Dai's build is this one. Now if you're wondering what this material here is, the one at the bottom left or top right in the material slot, I already included the material that we are getting from Vision World next week, and what it does is 750 static attack, magic, defense, and spirit. I think this is locked to Dragon Quest units. The builder, however, does not specify whether it's actually locked for Dragon Quest units only. So we'll see. I know for sure that this is a Vision World item because I checked the Reddit, the JP Reddit thread for this, and it was listed. So we'll see whether this only applies to Dragon Quest unit. For the time being, I only have it on Maam, Popp, and Dai because I'm fairly certain this is for Dragon Quest units. But yeah, this is what we're looking at. The numbers, they are not final here because the builder isn't really up to par these days and it's missing a lot of static attack. You will see the final values. I made sure I checked my Dai with the same gearing and added just 750 attack in game and thus got the correct value. This is the Maam build. Same thing basically. She also uses the 750 static attack stuff. She is built against Aquatic and Machina. And yeah, that's the build basically. And here is Popp. He's using the same stuff, Aquatic and Machina. And this is the result. So as you can see, Dragoon Knight or Dragon Knight Dai is rather high up, especially when he's fighting demons. Now keep in mind, I did not calculate a Dai versus an actual demon, even though I probably should. But if I were to set Dai to demon boss, he would instantly cap demon and thus increase the average killer buff that he has, and he'd be a lot closer to Knights of Grandchild in that regard. To some degree, he could even outperform Knights of Grandchild because Dragon Knight Dai reaches higher attack. Now, always keep in mind, Knights of Grandchild have a higher self-amp, 50% versus the 45% of Dai. So where the breakpoint is of Dai eclipsing Knights of Grandchild versus demons, I'd have to math this out, I was too lazy. But rest assured, versus demons, both Knights of Grandchild and Dragon Knight Dai are rather comparable. Now if you're fighting a non-demon, as you can see, Dai slightly loses in terms of DPS, he's below Stormseeker Esther. Like I mentioned, Esther 60% Lightning Amp actually does take the cake here. So she is slightly better, even though Dai has the higher LB modifier. Amplifications do matter after all. Martial Artist Maam is falling rather short, as you can see. The 330X LB doesn't do her justice, to be honest, but that's fine because Martial Artist Maam has, I believe, 8 killer types, where she buffs herself with 250%, what's it called? Killers. Physical though. So always keep in mind she has 250% killers, physical only, that you can steal with Mastermind Exalt. So in a way, she functions just like Regina, that she's mainly used as a killer buffer. But Martial Artist Maam actually can dish out some decent damage, as we all can see, right? Everybody in the top 10 and I believe even top 20 used Swordmaster Freyevia last month in Dark Visions. And why not use Maam for the exact same reason? So yeah, she's good in that regard. And then there is Mage Popp, who really doesn't do anything. He's a bottom barrel feeder with his 2.2k Medora ability, so that's nothing really that is really standing out here. Alright, so let's get the verdict. 3 verdicts. Hero Dai is the best unit of this banner, and I rate him 7 out of 10. One could argue that he's a 6 out of 10, and I would be totally fine with this, and explain why I gave him the 7 at the end of the day. So the good stuff: super slot efficient, instant attack percentage cap, instant LB cap, nice, super good. He also has a very good vision card and high potential damage with 89% of Knights of Grandeur in a worst case scenario, meaning against non-demons. His STMR is the reason why I gave him another +1. I feel like the sword meta, if it goes away right now, it will certainly come back with Titus. So that's why I gave him a +1. If the sword meta actually does not come back with the release of Premium Titus, well, I can always reduce or remove the 7 and substitute with a 6 out of 10. But I feel like for the time being, the 7 out of 10 is a good representation of his damage. And yeah, the bad things: no weapon in peril and only a 130 in peril. So this is rather new, the element in peril stuff. Usually I wouldn't downgrade his rating for the elemental in peril, but now that we have pretty much every element at minimum 135% in peril, I do penalize units for having less than 135% element in peril. With the upcoming units from JP being such high in peril units, I believe 140 baseline, 160 or so, 150 or so, at some point in the distant future, I will up this to 140% in peril baseline, where the cutoff is being made. But for the time being, the cutoff for being neutral, so +0, is 135. And that means that 130% in peril units will have -1. This is also happening retroactively. Funnily enough, when I checked, nobody's actually affected by this. Because if you have a weapon in peril, it's still neutral. So both of them, +1, -1, that's a 0. And the other bad thing about Hero Dai is that he has no meaningful party support. So yeah, as an overall verdict, Dai really shines when fighting lightning weak bosses first and also fights demons. Otherwise, he's a very solid, albeit a lightning locked LB finisher. And he's also power crept rather soon. And then there's martial artist Maam. I rated her 3 out of 10, and you will see, or you can read why. But yeah, she also is super slot efficient. She has instant 6x cap, for example, and also 300% LB damage innately, which is cool. For the 6x cap, you need EX +2 though, keep that in mind. Her STMR is really good, and yeah, here's the killer types: Avian, Beast, Demon, Dragon, Human, and Insect. So it's 6, not 8, sorry for that. But again, physical only. It's on her SLB, it requires Mastermind Zone, and that's why she's not getting a +1 for that, because it requires technically a second unit, and mages, true mages for that matter, they don't benefit from the killer, sadly. But it's worth mentioning that it's still good. The bad thing: no weapon in peril, only 130% light in peril, no party support, the kit of hers is super boring, and the vision card is straight up trash. Meaning, that's why all in all she's a 3 out of 10, but that doesn't mean that she's a bad unit. Again, I will repeat this every week: a 3 out of 10 means that she has a strong niche. She isn't inherently bad, but she's just good for that one thing, and that one thing is buffing killers and doing chip damage. But the killers, the 6 killers types, those are great. Especially Avian and Insect, super rare killer types, and she has 250% on her SLB for that. Great stuff, super good. So yeah, Maam's one and only niche is being that she's SLB for killers, so one can spread and steal and spread them. And she also deals some decent chip damage, but ultimately she's just a very good source of killer buffs. If you're not fighting for top 50 Dark Visions, she's a super safe skip. unless you really want the STMR though. But there's other options. I believe one of the story units that we are supposed to get at the end of the month, for example, also has a two-handed fist. So if you skip her, you will have a second chance at the end of the month at the latest. So don't worry about it. And there is Mage Popp, who really doesn't do anything. And it's a miracle that he's not a 1 out of 10, and the reason why he's not a 1 out of 10 is because his STMR is superb. But everything else is rather bad about him. He has no weapon in peril, only 130 fire ice in peril, no party support, the worst of the worst SLB kit, and another trash vision card. So even though I just said that the rating doesn't mean that the unit is inherently bad, for him, I would say yes, he is inherently bad. So sorry to say, but you're not good. Completely fails a unit, get the STMR and bench forever. And that is it for today. Thank you all for watching. Rather long review, but it's 3 units in 1. So yeah, I hope you've been enjoying this week in FFBE. I do like collab units, if they're good in particular, such as Dai and Maam. And I'll do another pull video for the second part next week. It's going to be rather short. Again, I just want 1 copy of Baran and the other guys. That's good enough for me. So yeah, we'll see each other Thursday next week. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, morning, afternoon, wherever it's from. Bye bye.